welcome. This is Kevin, also known as AKAAWOL, and today we're going to work with a pattern from friendshipbracelets.net. It's pattern number 110,000. It's a nice round number, eh? I was really interested in the center diamond part of this particular bracelet, but the rest of it, making it repeat and kind of balancing that out, I was like, no, I can do something different with this. And this is part of the request I was making from you guys, is to find a pattern that you thought was interesting, but that could maybe do with a change. So this is it. So I download the picture from friendshipbracelets.net, and I'm going to open it up with GIMP. GIMP is a free program used for manipulating images. So it allows me to do paint and stuff like that, right? There you go, see? And there is the picture straight from the website. And yeah, so it's a little, for me, this is a little complicated looking at it in that way because I'm so used to my own patterns, but here I'm going to open up my own. Now, I know the other one says it's a 16 strands and my graph paper says 8 strings. So the strings are based on the fact that I create a loop. So if there's 8 strings going up, there'll be another 8 coming down. That's where the 16 comes from. So there's no confusion. When you open up the PDF though, notice I changed the resolution to 300 dots per inch. That will give you a much crisper, cleaner look, but it also uses a lot more of your computer's CPU, or its ability to think. So because of that, I'm going to basically crop out the one area that I want to use. And that way it's just a little bit smaller of an image that I'm working with. Now what I'm doing is I'm going to set up some grid lines, right? So I got that center grid line there, and what I'm trying to figure out now is how long is the actual bracelet. So I'm actually using a bracelet that's on my desk. It was this one, and I'm going to use it to be able to find out where the center is. I want to make this a certain size. I don't want to go too huge or anything. So kind of laid out just a little bit of thing, got my center line onto the work there, and then I can now clean that all up and remove the stuff. Basically, I will choose the paint color of the blue and wipe it out with one swap, and then go back to doing the individual boxes, and now I have the center part to work from. So you can see there's the diamond over on the left. That's the basic shape or whatever. So I'm trying to create that, and mind you, I really don't have to do anything below that center line because of the fact that, you know, I can cut the whole top part and then flip it, which I do later on, so you'll see that in a second. At this point, I thought I needed to widen it out in order to put the image that we have on the side, to actually put that onto the paper. It turns out not really. When I come over here to actually crop this out, I was expecting it to be kind of big, right? It looks big, but it's really not so large after all. So see here, I Control C and Control V, and it kind of disappeared. So I have to go look for it. There it is. And I rotate it. And I basically turning it 90 degrees. Rotate. And then I can shift it over to the side. I had to change tools. I had to change to the little tool that lets me move things instead of the one that rotates it. And there we go. So now I have something to work with. Now you notice the light blue in the pattern itself is a lot like my light blue of my pattern design. So that makes things a little bit confusing. So I decided I would go with the green instead of the light blue. And the only reason I actually use that light blue is something I learned from a drafting class a long time ago. Apparently, if you print that color and you put it onto a copy machine, it won't pick up that particular light blue color. It's just an interesting thing I learned in drafting. And you'll also see that besides taking the liberty to change the blue to this green, I also change the white to a yellow. And the reason for that is if you make it white, it blends in with the background really good, and it makes it hard to see whether or not you're missing a spot when you're trying to fill in all the little pieces later on. So my tip to you would be, when you're going to do these things for yourself, because I expect you to like try and experiment yourself, pick colors that are easy on your eyes to be able to work with and to be able to differentiate between the different parts of a pattern. And I guess that friendshipbracelet.net allows you to actually change on the website. I haven't actually used the feature. I could have done that, but I didn't really see a need to. It was something that is like, sure, it's there, but you know. So now I'm basically, I'm going to try to create the area that I thought was interesting, right? So I'm recreating the whole, you know, the middle part of the diamond, the white that kind of comes up around it, and then there's this sort of a boxy thing where you have just the dots. So yeah. And at this point, because I'm actually working off of something that is known to be a working pattern, I don't have to worry about the underlying colors or anything at this point at all. I'm just mimicking what I see, and afterwards I can fill in all of the rest of the details. Right, so and the one thing that kind of gets me about the friendshipbracelet.net, if I could just kind of complain a little bit, is you see on the edges there's like a little half a square, which isn't a knot, which doesn't make any sense to me. Like, it's showing something that doesn't exist. In my stuff, you just see the knots where they are. You don't get these extra little pieces. So that's my own little gripe. But it is what it is. People are used to it, and I can't expect them to honestly change. So enough about that. So now you can see, I know that there's had to be 2 blue strings coming down, and they're like that. I know for the yellow to be there has to be yellow going underneath, and I can put those in, and I can follow that yellow down and know that that's how potentially those strings get to there, right? So now I'm doing detective work almost. I'm trying to find where strings go and how they get to their various points throughout this bracelet. And you'll find something kind of interesting too as I do this. There is a string that wasn't necessarily needing to be that particular color. It's just there because you need a string to tie the knots. So but yeah, that comes a little bit later on. I'm getting ahead of myself. So yeah, the green, I could see how the green had to travel up through the rest of it. It's just a straight line. I can see that it needs to make that turn right there in order to make up that diamond. And like I said, I don't have to work below that line because of the fact that I'm going to cut and paste that whole top section onto the bottom section and have the whole thing done. All I needed to know was where that center line is and get it lined up really, really good, so that way when I do the cut, it matches up perfectly. So, and you can see I have to do a lot of little okay, do I go here, do I go there, you know, this long blue line, that's really obvious, right? And when doing this, realistically, I accidentally hit the black outer thing, turned it all blue. Oop, and then I still had black on the palette. So grab the blue, put it back in. I try to go with the obvious stuff first. I try to pick out where it's pretty obvious that something has to be in a certain place. And then when you're left with what little bit is left over, figuring it out becomes really simple. So yeah, it's just a case of following partially your instinct. Mind you, I could have gone over to the other pattern, like the pattern that's already generated, and I could have gotten it from there. Why don't I? Mostly because I really like honing my skill of doing this detective work. Like, I want to be able to look at a pattern that I may find on Instagram or Facebook and be able to figure it out and be able to make my own twist on the pattern itself. And by the time I'm done with this pattern is going to look nothing like the original, right? Because the original is essentially this diamond repeating itself over and over, and I'm not going to do that. And mind you, I've been thinking about this pattern for a while now. Like, I'm really kind of excited about what I'm going to do with it, and to the point, like, I honestly, I plan on tomorrow getting, well, I'm hoping tonight maybe Mandy can do the kumi for me, and tomorrow I'll record a video showing me making this thing, because I think it's going to look really, really cool. I'm really pretty excited about it. So when you're doing the detective thing, one of the things you'll notice is if you got two blues coming in the top, you're going to have two blues coming out the bottom, right? If it's two yellows coming in, it's two yellows going out. If you have a yellow-green coming in, you have a yellow-green going out. So seeing where there's already, you know, two of the squares filled, see, like that one right there, right? It was obviously that was going to be a blue coming out. You had two blues coming in and above it. So that's how you break down that whole detective thing. And the other thing to look for in this is, because it's got the symmetry between the left and the right hand side, typically whatever happens on the right will also happen on the left. So, you know, if you figured out one side, you pretty much probably have it figured out for the other side as well. So yeah, you can see I'm trying to find like what's left, and, you know, find and see it's the light blue. I'm hunting for where is the light blue and where is, you know, a known color coming in, and going through the thing. And there you have it. So let's see. Oh yeah, I got the dark blue there. Do I find it at this point? It's kind of funny looking back at like things that you've done. It's like, wait, how did I? Yeah, right there. So I see the dark blue came in, dark blue has to go out. And here's where I'm kind of looking at this like, wait a second, what's going on? Because that light blue line that's going through there doesn't need to be any color. So I went over here and I kind of took a look at the pattern, how it was working. And in the end, what gave me the clue of how they did it was by counting how many dark blues there are, how many whites there are. And that's how I figured out that it was 4 dark blues, 3 whites, and then the light blue. So going back to my own, so you can see my counting right there. And then, yep. And then I spotted the 2 dark blues that I missed. But yeah, so I went ahead and I added the yellow, which obviously represents the white. I added the yellow just for convenience sake. I didn't see a reason to well, I could have put in a whole different color, which could have been fun, right? I could have had something that was only in the top part of it. Like, say, like turn that color to red, you know, for example. Then I would very much have a very different pattern on my hands. But for the sake of this experiment, I went ahead and did the yellow. And yeah, so at this point now I have the part of the pattern that I like. Now I'm going to actually change it, right? And I'm really excited about this part, because you know, that space that I have above it, that's all I have to work with, right? So I'm grabbing the blue, and and mind you, this has been in my head. I go to bed and I think about patterns, and I realized that this would be really cool to make it the cool diamond with some arrowhead. Now, an arrowhead going upwards is a little bit tricky to try to navigate when you're doing a pattern, but the same rules typically apply that you would do the other direction, right? If you're going downwards, which in fact it will do. So I saw the yellow was coming up. The yellow came in contact, so I knew that that square there was going either direction. So I was able to put in that underlying colors like in advance, right? If I know it's going to do a thing, putting it in while I'm really consciously aware of it, just kind of helps it move along and makes this kind of go a little bit faster. So at this point, I'm putting in the underlying stuff where I know that to be. And mind you, I kind of go through and have to finish it up later on anyways, but yeah, here I figured out the blue was going to be what was in the center of that diamond. And then coming down, can see where that is the color that it ends up at the edge. So just follow it along, follow along the edges. There are underlying colors I don't know yet, right? You can see where the light blues are going. I don't necessarily know what will be in that space until I finish out the stuff that's really obvious. But yeah, you can see I'm doing like the arrowheads, just making the little diamond that goes above where the V shape comes together. Yeah. And again, what happened on the left pretty much happens on the right. You know, I could have started at the bottom like I did before. It was just happened to be where I was at, and following it down, it just turned out to be easier. And now, and this I didn't quite expect it to do this, but then I was like kind of excited when it did. The one solidary color, the green in this case, just happened to be the one that comes up next. And I thought, wow, that's great. You know, it plays such a small role down in the diamond, but now it's going to play this much bigger role up here in the arrowhead, right? And there wasn't really room to do a loop for it. So I figured, you know what? I'm just going to leave it like it is right there. It doesn't need to kind of go off further like it's going off in infinity. It can be kind of closed in, and it'll make the start of the bracelet actually look really cool. So to me, this was like a really exciting, like, heck yeah, that looks neat. So, and you can see I'm just following down just like I did from the other side and getting everything to match up. And then the next color that comes up is obviously that's that blue, and I can see as I'm going through there, it only had that path to go through. It couldn't, because the other strings were already dictated the direction they're going. That blue could only go that particular path. And so now I've got the blues sandwiching in that green, which I think is going to make for an excellent start. Now, mind you, I'm going to change up the colors a bit. I have chosen a fluorescent yellow to be in the place of the yellows, and I have a dark blue to where the blues are going to go, and I have a fluorescent green for where the green is going to go. So I've already got the colors picked out. I haven't got the strings cut just yet. That's going to be done after I finish doing this video. I'm going to cut the strings and see if Mandy can kumi that up for me. And yeah, Very exciting. So now it's about where do the rest of the strings go, and you can see how basically it's just, you know, taking a look and seeing, you know, there's two blues coming out of a knot, you know, so obviously two blues had to go into it, things like that, just trying to find the where the path goes for each one of the colors. And I think this is kind of cool too. There's just going to be a little yellow right there at the very top of it. I think that's kind of neat. Like, just again, it just happened to turn out that way, and yeah, I think that's really pretty cool. I think that's, like, for me, this is the exciting part, the whole designing it and coming up with what it's going to do, and what's going to make the pattern, you know, not just the fact that it's a bit unique, but it's going to be eye-catchy. There's going to be a lot kind of going on, and it's going to, you know, come to this really cool center diamond thing. And yeah, I get all excited about this stuff, obviously. So yeah. And see, I've already done some of the stuff on the left. Now I have to go back and kind of like, wait, where was I on the right? Yeah. Or strike that backwards. I did the right, now I'm having to do the left. And you know, I can look to the other side, or I can just try to figure it out, you know, on my own. But it's you can see the blue came up through there, travels, goes. Yeah, it's just about filling it in, finding the blank spaces, fixing it. There's a, obviously that was a yellow. And just take your time with this. You know, you don't want to make a mistake in here, because this will tell you what order to put your strings on. And if you make a mistake, something that you weren't paying attention to or something, and it comes out, you put the strings in the wrong order, your pattern obviously won't turn out like you expected, because you need the strings to start out in the exact right sequence, and then the rest really becomes easier. Once it's getting it to start that is typically the most potential for something to go wrong. So yeah. And see here, I'm just hunting out wherever I see the light blue and figuring out what goes in its place, you know. And here we are, kind of getting to the end of it, right? And as I look over it, there are no more of the light blue ones, so that is essentially done. So now what I have to do is I get the tool that selects the shape or whatever that I want, and I grab that top half, and that guide, that line, that marker thing actually works as a guide to snapping it together. So now I can Control C, Control V, and then I flip it vertically, and then I attach it down below, and I kind of zoom in really close to make sure I get it lined up really nice. It kind of looks better when you get it right. And there you go. So that's a quick way of being able to work out a pattern, something new, something different. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll be back tomorrow with the bracelet itself. Thank you to all my Patreon supporters for making this possible. And, you know, I couldn't do it without you guys. So thank you very much. Now all I have to do is crop it down and save it so that way I can share it with you guys over on my website. So there you have it. Oh, the eraser makes it worse. I just use a paint tool here. So, okay, that's about it for this one, guys. really appreciate you guys sticking around this long. Thank you so much. And as always, don't get your strings in a bunch.